Hey guys, this is Ted Busiek, and what you're about to hear is the first half of an interview I did with Shiva Ayyadurai, an independent candidate for the United States Senate for Massachusetts. And I'm going to just say right up front, the audio quality for this interview is terrible. This was the last interview that I conducted with my old microphone, which was a really garbage microphone. I've since gotten a new microphone, which is much nicer and I think picks up my voice a lot better. And then as far as Shiva's side is concerned, I think his microphone was pretty crappy too, because neither one of us, neither of our voices came through very well. So I was pretty disappointed with that. And I almost said, you know what, screw it, I'm just not even gonna post this interview because I was so disappointed with the audio quality. But I've decided to go ahead and post it anyway because Shiva is a very interesting guy. I think he has interesting things to say. And I think the interview, if you can listen past the garbage quality, I think that it's a very interesting interview. If you can't, then I fully understand that too. Um, this is billed as part one of this interview, and at the end of this, you'll hear me plugging a part two. I'm not sure that I'm gonna post that. I need to re-listen to it, and if it's as bad as or worse than this, if it's just really unlistenable, I might just not post it. Part two is interesting. We get into a little bit of like foreign policy and stuff like that, which we don't do in part one. But I kind of want to leave the old era of garbage audio quality behind, so I might just leave it with part one. Anyway, without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Shiva Ayyadurai. Thanks.
Let's start with who you are, what you're running for, and what makes you special.
So this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I'm running for United States Senate against Elizabeth Warren. Unlike most career politicians that are in this election, I'm the only one who's a statesman, inventor, and scientist who's been essentially fighting this fight for most of my life. But more importantly, I came here as an immigrant when I was 7 years old through the public school systems of New Jersey. Came to Massachusetts since 1981. I've been here almost 36 years. Got 4 degrees from MIT, started 7 companies actually creating jobs in Massachusetts. Most of the people who are running for office right now, be it Elizabeth Warren or any of the insiders within the Republican Party, are career politicians or insiders. I'm the only one who's an outsider, and in fact the only one who can debate, defeat, and expose Elizabeth Warren. I think we're at a point in human history now that people are tired of the left, quote unquote, the left and the right. They're actually looking for people who can actually solve problems, but actually have a history of solving problems. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, you say people are tired of the left-right paradigm. What do you see replacing that? If there's so supposing that's true, sort of the future is not in left-right alignment, but it's in sort of people running on the basis of individual merits. Do you think that we're going to move away from a party system altogether, or are you special, or?
Well, here's the reality. Let's look at the data. It's not about me or you. What we think. The reality is Massachusetts, for example, nearly 2.5 million people are independent. 500,000 Republicans on a good day and 1.5 million Democrats. And I've been out on the street talking to these people. So bottom line is, you just look at those numbers, this is not a blue state or a red state. If anything, it's an I state. It's an independent state. That's what this really is. And that's out of the 4.5 million people who are registered. There's another 1 million people who don't even register because they feel completely disenfranchised from the system. Right? So that's the data. And you could probably argue that other 1 million are probably definitely not Republican or Democrats. If anything, are unenrolled in an informal sense. So I would say we definitely live in an independent state in Massachusetts in particular. So that's just the data speaking for itself, and people are essentially not believing in either of these parties. The Trump election, and I believe Trump was a necessary disruption that was going to take place. Donald Trump is, let's be very honest, he's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat. He's Donald Trump, and he ran on his own, background. The founders of this country were neither Republicans or Democrats. There were never supposed to be two-party system. It's frankly, in my opinion, un-American to have any of these two parties.
You mentioned Trump. Were you a Trump supporter? Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Well, here's the deal. I came to the United States, as I mentioned, in 1970. When I came to MIT as a 17-year-old kid, was very interested in politics for many reasons because, I came from a background of what we were known as untouchables or low caste in India, or deplorables. So the fact that my parents even came here is quite significant. The most important thing in that journey is that I was very interested in political systems. When I came to MIT, if you remember, a guy called Jesse Jackson was running as a third-party candidate on the Rainbow Coalition. So I said, wow, this is interesting. He's anti-establishment. And at the last minute, Jesse Jackson sold out the movement, and he gave all of his elections to the Democrat Walter Mondale. And that's when I realized that in political systems, you actually have three dynamics. You have the establishment, then you have the change agents, everyday people like ourselves who are out there working hard, looking for a better day, and most of those people are not aligned with any party. And then you have a third element, which is called the not-so-obvious establishment, people who talk a good game like Jesse Jackson, like Elizabeth Warren, like Bernie Sanders, saying they're going to fight for you, hope, and at the last minute, they use that rhetoric to take the energy out of the masses, the change agents, and drive them back into the establishment. So for me, after I witnessed that, and I studied this, in all political systems worldwide, I realized that I'm not going to support either of these parties. Long story short, when Trump ran, I said, wow, this guy's actually using that platform to hit the media, and he's causing disruption. And as an innovator, as an inventor, I'm a disruptor, so I like that. The first time I ever voted in my life was for Trump, and I'm glad I did it. He was a disruption. He was a necessary disruption. And then I registered as a Republican and ran, and that's when I realized the Massachusetts GOP in Massachusetts, they have an interest in power sharing with the Democrats. So that's when I broke the Republicans and running as an independent.
Right. So one of the interviews that we have up right now is with Heidi Wellman, and she had this to say about you. Quote, "You don't even mention his name now, people feel so betrayed." And that was in the context of you switching from Republican to independent. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like there was any kind of political cost or political backlash from people who maybe they don't share your independent sense that the Republican Party is not a good vehicle for advancing their interests?
I actually don't understand what this woman's even saying. I don't understand her comment, frankly.
Well, the comment is, the idea is that people who are within the party feel that in running independent, you've done something in the nature of betrayal. And that's not my words, that's her words, because of the concern that you might be a spoiler against a Republican's chance to beat Liz Warren.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. This is a very fascist comment. Maybe Heidi's a fascist.
Maybe Heidi's a fascist.
Yeah,
how do you what's the connection to fascism?
She's sort of acknowledging that there's only supposed to be two parties, and anyone who spoils their game is a bad person. That's nonsense. If that's what she's meaning, I don't think that's what she's meaning. But the same thing continually gets said as, the two parties, Pepsi and Coke, nonsense. I hope to spoil both of them. They don't give a damn about the American people. They give a damn about perpetuating their existence through their career politicians. That's un-American. So we as Americans should upset them. We should spoil them. It's a good day to spoil them. Either of them, both of them, or together. All of them.
The problem is, unless you win, one of those parties has to win, right? So I guess what some people are saying is that if you lose, basically you will draw more support from whoever the Republican candidate is than the Democratic candidate, and give the Democratic candidate the victory thereby.
Yeah, so how are these people getting this conclusion?
Well, I guess the thinking is that suppose there were only two candidates.
And what's wrong with that anyway? And if they care so much about that situation, the issue is, what are the issues at hand? You know, I'm a guy who's against Monsanto. The Republican Party is not against Monsanto. In fact, Republicans and Democrats have both supported Monsanto. Elizabeth Warren voted for the Monsanto Protection Act. When I'm out at Whole Foods distributing flyers, 90% of the people at Whole Foods get really upset. There's a whole quote-unquote left who's been misled by people like Warren and Bernie Sanders. They're going to come to my side. That's not Republican. Then on the other hand, there are people on the right, quote-unquote right again. My position is the Paris Accords have nothing to do with climate change. You see what I'm saying? They don't support the alleviation of pollution. There's a lot of people on the quote-unquote right that are going to come to my side. The issue is not left or right. This is a nonsensical division that's been created by essentially a bunch of people who think they can control narrative. They create 5 issues, and they think that's all Americans care about. The real issue is people are really interested in, for example, clean government, term limits, right? 80% of Americans want term limits. Neither of these parties want term limits. So think about that. That's not a left or right issue. That's an American issue. We need to have voter ID. That's not a left or right issue. We need to make sure, one of the things we're putting out is $1, one vote, which means if you look at the total number of registered voters in a populace, for example, in a state, a candidate can be able to spend more than $1. So if you need to raise $50, $100 million to get your message out there, that means your message sucks. And if you can't do this with $4.3 million, in this case in Massachusetts, you deserve to lose. So those are our 3 things under clean government. None of these people want that, Ted, because all of them are part of the system. You know, Warren's part of the system, Jeff Deal's part of the system, John Kingston's part of the system, Beth Lindstrom's part of the system. They're insiders. None of them have actually created jobs. They've moved around money, but none of them have created jobs. That's what I've done. And that's purely American, beyond Democrat and Republican.
Tell me about Monsanto. What's the issue there?
Well, do you know who they are?
Yeah, they're like a big agribusiness, right? Corn and things like that.
They're more than that. So this is part of the education that needs to occur. Right now, nearly 70% of Americans are overweight. The latest research shows that ultra low levels of a herbicide called glyphosate, which is also known as Roundup, causes fatty liver disease. So think about that. Okay, fatty liver is when your liver doesn't function, which is the onset of obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. So who creates that? Monsanto does. So it's a herbicide that the largest agribiological company in the world creates. Where did Monsanto have its roots? Well, Monsanto was a company that, with Dow, joint venture to create another chemical. I don't know how old you are, but you may know the chemical called Agent Orange. You may have heard of it. Agent Orange that was used in Vietnam. We dumped 50,000 tons of it on the Vietnamese, but it also had collateral effects on lots and lots of veterans who still suffer from it today, and it still don't get taken care of. So the technology that Monsanto and Dow created, when Vietnam ended, they repurposed that technology because essentially they delivered herbicides from the air, which defoliated the foliage so we could see the Vietnamese. Well, that same technology got reused in factory farming. The history of America prior to 100 years ago was not factory farms, as you know. It was small, local farms, which is, some may call it a conservative thing, some may call it a liberal thing, which is local farms. You shop locally, you get your foods locally, it's healthier, it's organic, you don't destroy the soil. What Monsanto did was they created Roundup, which they essentially monopolized. Every major factory farmer has to purchase it. Well, that killed weeds, but it also was killing things like the soy and the corn that they were growing. So in response to that, Monsanto created genetically modified soy or corn. What that means is they took the soy seed and they integrated into that a gene from a bacteria. So it's basically asexual integration. This would never, ever occur in nature, okay? And they created a version of soy, for example, which could resist their own pesticides. You follow? So now if you're a farmer, you have to buy their pesticide and you have to buy their seed. What they are essentially doing is they're monopolizing seeds all over the world. So if you're a farmer, Ted, and you have seeds, you're not allowed to save those seeds past 1 year. So it's a very, very destructive enterprise Monsanto is on. And several years ago, there was a law called the Monsanto Protection Act, which basically said you and I could never sue Monsanto if we found any of their products were hurting our family or our friends or our children. And Elizabeth Warren voted for that, in favor of it. Most of the people in Congress get paid off by Monsanto. Henry Kissinger said something interesting. He said, if you want to truly control a people, control their soil. So this is not a left fringe issue anymore. This is a serious issue. You know, I have a PhD from MIT. I have 4 degrees from MIT. I've used technology that I developed to really research, and the conclusion is there are no safety assessment standards for genetically engineered foods. If you want to take one of the most important issues for every American, it's our health. And single-handedly, Monsanto has destroyed the health of every American citizen in this country. And it's time that we take our country back. And part of the entire issue is Monsanto's pesticide needs to be prohibited. But more importantly, their genetically engineered foods have no safety assessment standards.
Gotcha. I mean, this is a pretty deep, pretty heavy issue here, but I can tell you're very well versed on it. But not only are you well versed on it, you're good at sort of illustrating a narrative around it that doesn't leave whoever you're talking to in the dark. So I think that's a very strong suit. Could we circle back to what you said about $1, 1 vote? Is that all right?
Sure.
So the idea there is, I mean, this is like a campaign finance limitation. You're not allowed to spend more dollars than the total number of voters that could vote for you. Is that the concept?
Yeah, exactly. And you should be able to spend more than $1. It's called customer acquisition. We do it in business, right? If I'm running a company, if my marketing guys came and said, hey, we're going to spend $500 to acquire a customer, and it's a product that only sells for $1, it's stupid, right? You're out of business. So what we have in the entire, I mean, I've learned this over the last 9 months, is that you could be a complete moron, and you can win an office because you just raise a ton of money and you hit the airwaves. Your message may suck, no one may want you, but it's called name brand visibility, right? So it's essentially you hit a bunch of people with drone advertising over and over and over again, and just like they think they have to drink Diet Coke or Pepsi, that's what they go by. And that is not what a democratic society is supposed to be about. It's about it to win on the strength of your ideas. So for example, Hillary Clinton spent what, $1.2 billion. Trump spent about $300 million. In the last election between Warren and Scott Brown, I think the total that they spent was close to $200 million. So that's the reality. So if we want to wake up to reality versus just doing things the same old way, is that why are people raising that kind of money? And is that appropriate? That's the question. And my number is, hey, $1. If you need more than $1 to get your message up for vote, then something's wrong. Okay, you may say $1.50, fine. But these people are spending exorbitant amounts to get a vote. You got to understand, most of this stuff is going to buddies who are political consultants and to their friends who own media. So it's a complete racket.
Could this be a bit of a glass house situation? And I don't want to insult you with this, but I read online that you've already spent over $1 million on the campaign, and that you've spent more than any of the other candidates. So if you're talking about people, if your approach is people are spending too much money in elections, do you think maybe you're not leading by example when it comes to that, or how would you square that circle?
Well, first of all, I haven't taken other people, right? That money is spent. If you go read it on our technology, and I'm spending the most someone should be able to spend is $5 million. Period. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what do you? I mean, so you say you're spending it on technology. What does that mean? That's a little.
The technology that we have put in is technology that I have created that we have the rights to license to our campaign, which is really cool. So you're talking about an innovator. We're using our own technology that I built, good old American ingenuity, with our own patents, with technology that was used by the biggest Fortune 1000 companies in the world. So we're not out here taking people's money and going and spending it and adding a markup. So we're going to run this campaign with you're already seeing in a very, very diligent way and in a very entrepreneurial and innovative way. So that's what we're doing. So if you go look at our FTC filings, there's some incredible technology that really can understand people's profile, right? We have technology that really does incredible stuff with big data, right? We have technology that lets our volunteers work anywhere, anytime, any place to support our campaign. We're using mobile. We're using some very, very cool stuff that the guy you're talking to actually built. Right. So this is in essentially not only the spirit, but this is how our founders were, right? I love Franklin. I love Jefferson. These guys were true Americans. There are people saying, I know how to fix stuff. They don't know how to fix their car. They don't know how to fix anything. And they're talking about, I'm going to create jobs. Well, you've never even created a job. So how do you know how to create a job? So it's a lie. It's rhetoric. You got to understand these people are parasites. That's what they really are. I know how much this country means. Most career politicians have no idea what this country is about. They see this as a business for them to get in, make their buddies, make their friends, and make money for themselves. And the instant they get elected, they're trying to get reelected. My view is, the ideal model, 6 years in any office and you're done, which means you're not worrying about reelection, you're worrying about doing something. Period.
That's interesting. So are you committing then to not run for reelection if you win?
Yeah, my idea is maximum 2 terms, but that's it. What these guys do, Ted, is they're in there, they create little mafia agreements, they create their little network, and they think they have some right, which they don't. So the way we get, one of our platforms in our campaign is clean government, the other is real health and real jobs. Clean government means, hey, let's have term limits, let's have voter ID, and let's have significant limits on campaign finance. And I'm proposing an actual formula, right? $1 for the total number of votes, period. And let's see how many of these guys even will agree to that. They won't. Because they're scam artists and they're career politicians and they're just in it for themselves. They're not in it to go fix anything. You're going to see on our website, we're actually drawing up bills right now. In the next few weeks,
Whoa, hello. We've lost him. I don't know what's going on here. I'm calling him right back. He was too big of a threat. They took him out. Oh, man.
Shiva Ayyadurai was too big of a threat to the two-party system. They were afraid of his secret weapon, proprietary technology. And so they had him taken out, right in the middle of the interview. Actually, not really. The truth is, the call just got dropped, and he very kindly called me back, and we continued our conversation, which you'll hear the rest of in part 2 of this interview. We cover a wider variety of topics, including delving into foreign policy. You will not be at all surprised by his views on Pakistan, but you may be quite surprised by his views on South Africa. All that and more in the next episode of The Conversation.